Carlson Inc. My name is Gary Carlson, and I'm going to be your host today, and we're going to be talking about learning disabilities. This course will be a general introduction to learning disabilities. We will begin by first giving you a little background. I hope you're all having a wonderful day and happy you have chosen our training center to assist you in your development as a teacher. Today we are going to give you a better knowledge of learning disabilities and potentials for your students. Just remember, there's nothing special about special education. All education is special. We have all special needs. It is through our talents as teachers we can determine the secrets to the best paths for each of our students to learn. I've been blessed over my life to have been acquainted with some of the best teachers anyone could imagine. You wouldn't know any of them by name. They are people just like you. From the beginning of time, we have always experienced those who love to teach. But as we became more civilized, we began to categorize learners by their diversity of learning. This is how we got to today's lesson on learning disabilities. So let's begin by talking about our goal today is to better inform you about students with learning disabilities. Our presentation will cover the definition of learning disabilities, assessment of learning disabilities, techniques to be used with learning disabilities, approaches to learning disabilities, and when do we start to serve students with learning disabilities. Through our time as educators, we have done some injustice to our students by the labels we have given them. Categorizations are often for the convenience of administrative labeling for approving or by verifying a handicap label so they can receive additional funding for the individual student. Usually the label doesn't do much for the students or even help for prognosis of success. The definition of learning disability is an umbrella term that encompasses a wide variety of disorders, including basic psychological processes involved in understanding or using the spoken written language. Also involves listening, comprehension, speaking, spelling, writing, computational and problem-solving skills needed by individuals to function effectively. Teachers and parents should never assume a pseudo-diagnosis for any person with learning deficits until an appropriate assessment has been administered for the student. Through diagnosis, we can begin the process of a prescription that best fits the student's learning styles. You remember when I mentioned there is nothing special about special education? This is what I was specifically referring to. We all have our own learning styles. We have learned much more about these throughout the years. Learning styles. There are many, and we all use them all. Visual, spatial, you prefer to using pictures, images, and spatial understanding. Auditory, you like to listen to music. You like things to be auditorily verbal. Speech and verbal and linguistic, you prefer using words both in speech and writing. Physical, kinesthetic, you prefer to use your body and hands, that sense of touch. Logical, mathematical, you prefer using logic and reasoning in systems. Social, interpersonal, you prefer to learn in groups or with other people. Then we have those individuals that are solitary, who would prefer to work alone and use their own self-study to grow. A student's learning styles have more to influence than you may realize. Each person's preferred learning style guide them on how they represent their experiences, recall information, and even the words they choose. It is a known fact that each learning style uses a different part of the brain. Please refer to the downloadable free learning style inventory assessment to see your learning and study skill worksheet for a result. I have a great admiration for teachers who have embraced their professional teaching position to accept and adapt to the many variables present in every classroom. Our recognition of who we are teaching and prescribing the best performance plan for students provides for maximizing learning. No surprise is that now we have added a new group to our learning class. With their new technology exposures, they have preferred learning styles we have not been familiar with in the past. Special needs. Special needs students who most likely are present in your classroom may have one or more of any of these challenges. Learning disabilities, hearing impairment, visually impaired, physically challenged, could be any or all of some of the students may have a combination of those in your class. Our focus today will be to consider some general principles for instruction for students with learning disabilities. Communication techniques is so important. Communication techniques when we teach may result in greater success when we can vary our techniques. Time on task is essential for our students to succeed at their highest potential. Giving extra time for assignments, extra time on tests, chunking of long assignments are all potential prescriptions for successful outcomes. Organized and clear directions given in different formats will give the student a full potential of understanding their assignment and expectations. We should set goals. Setting goals with the teacher and the student on a weekly basis gives a stair-step approach to building on success rather than failures. There should be ample opportunities to have students learn in social groups with small group assignments in class. Peer learning has been successful for years of teaching. Group competition is a method of inputting foundational practice in improving comprehension, written expression, and mathematical problem solving. The secret is to make learning absolutely fun. Each student has a different means of communication, both from teacher to student and student to teacher. We must reinforce that communication between each other. And every teacher should always have their contact information written on the whiteboard so students know how to contact their teacher when they have a question. Suggestions for better communication in the classroom are things like speak clearly, slow enough for diverse audiences. Use open-ended questions for students to think. Questions may not have a right or wrong answer, but present the opportunity for opinion and problem solving. When speaking, use pauses. Take a breath. Long, direct communication becomes hard to comprehend and very boring. Each time you present new concepts or new material, it should be like raising the flag. Keep interest at its highest when moving on to something new. Overlearning is when you repeat information. We all know it takes more than once to have people remember what was said. It is essential in the classroom we understand this technique, and throughout the teachable moments, we refer back to key elements for our students to recall. Classrooms should be arranged to encourage participation. Wouldn't it be great if all our classrooms had no front of the room or no back of the room? The quickest way to shut down the learning process is to use the word no. Too many times in learning process, the word no presents feeling of failure. Again, I reemphasize, learning should be fun. When your students enter the classroom every day, we are assured we have students who have great confidence and those that have expectations of another day of failure. The learning environment must be flexible, spontaneous, and relaxed. Stay clear of setting up failure and build a foundation of learning is fun in your classroom. Competition is great for groups, but individual academic competition in the classroom motivates a few, but actually intimidates many. Perfection doesn't happen in the learning process, but only happens throughout time in the classroom. As teachers, we are always looking for improvement. Measures of growth need to be rewarded. Building a caste system in the classroom only provides for the expectation for students to accept and sit in the status of the caste system we create. Learning is best facilitated by immediate feedback with encouragement and guidance. Long periods without feedback makes the learning process less meaningful. We must make it important, and that's by responding and communicating as quickly as we can. Student materials need to be age appropriate. Always keep materials used or methods within the stage of the learning style of the student that they function. If we want our students to be problem solvers, make work open-ended where they can intertwine your expected learning outcomes with a student's ability to be creative. Students need to have the ability to report in the best forms of communication they possess. This will build their confidence by using strengths to convey their learning expectations. As we go forward, we want to definitely build greater confidence in our students. So building confidence for any of us is to encourage us to be motivated for learning more. Ask yourself, what have we been using to discourage or demotivate the learning process? If we recognize we are setting up the potential for students to be self-conscious of their fears, we reduce their potential. Let me give you simple classroom techniques that make a difference in the outcomes for your students. Classrooms, assignments need to be segmented into small portions to increase a sense of accomplishment. Pair students with peers so an accountability for success rests with each other. Don't be weary of calling on a student when they may not be correct. This is a learning moment on how a teacher handles the moment. If you can make this a comfortable moment, it allows the student to stop being concerned about giving a wrong answer and begins to participate without a punitive feeling. Let's now talk about the behavior in the classroom. Behavior in the classroom is key to a learning process. We sometimes believe the only way to learn is in a quiet, sterile room. The best classrooms often are the rooms with the greatest activity. Each student can record their achievements. If we are measuring in the right segments, they will feel successful. Peer tutoring is for all. Each student should have the opportunity to be the teacher with another student. This is a great way of reviewing materials. Praise for class and individuals is important. Some praise for individuals can be discreet to acknowledge or for hard work or accomplishments. Students need to be aware of the learning process. Learning is the opportunity to become rich with accumulated knowledge. Teaching with a fire hose creates frustration. A successful assigned task is when a student meets with some success. Without question, the most successful teachers, not regarding their skill in their subject, but the level of empathy they have for their students, creates a level playing field for their students to be successful. Teachers have a unique way of bonding with each individual in their classroom. The value proposition is creating a student who experiences the value in themselves and the value in their teacher. Listening by the teacher to recognize the student's interest motivates them even more to learn. As teachers, we need to allow ourselves to be human and communicate to students our strengths and weaknesses. Be sure to explain we all have our preferred ways of doing things. When we can accomplish the preferred methods, we will all are better off with learning. Let's talk now about positive talk. Our own self-conscious sometimes and self-talk is key to our progress. Students may be the biggest deterrent to learning by their poor self-talk. Never allow our weaknesses to be an excuse for not succeeding. Self-talk leads us that way sometimes. Always focus on the end outcomes for why we do what we do. Our challenge is to increase self-esteem. If we don't do this, no one will. You can be the turning point in the lifetime of one person. You are the professional who can make the difference for each of your students. Take our students from what they think is a current reality for them to seeing a vision of success of where they could go. Accommodations for learning need to exist for all students. As you have seen, the diversity in any classroom is wide. Do we want to change the lives of many or just a few? Well, I think I know the answer to that. Let's be on target with our prescriptive teaching. If we are on target, students, parents, and society all thank you. This comes to our conclusion of this course, which was a very short introductory course for learning disabilities, primarily for teachers and parents. And I appreciate the time with you, and I look forward to coming back with more for you in the near future. Thank you.